Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's candidate forum. I am Gina Coppins, Chair of the Belgrade Communications Committee. I want to give a warm welcome to the three candidates who are running for 2 seats for Select Board. They are Corey Alexander, Barbara Allen, and Ernie Merkins. Jay Bradshaw is our moderator. Most people know Jay, who has been moderating town meeting for a number of years, and more recently, candidate forums and community conversations on Zoom. This forum is being streamed live on the town's Facebook page. If you'd like to ask the candidates questions, you can post them either in the chat feature on Zoom or on the Facebook page. We really appreciate folks who tune into the forum and participate by asking the candidates some questions. It's a good way for us to not only get to know the candidates better, but also learn what is important to you Belgrade residents. So now I will turn it over to Jay.
Great. Thanks, Gina, and thanks to everybody who's joining us. For those who are popping in, there'll be, I'm sure, folks that will be coming in and out. For the purpose of just trying to keep this manageable, all the cameras are off and the microphones are off, except for our candidates. We have a series of questions that we're going to ask. This is not a debate. This is neighbors meeting neighbors, and our goal is to have this feel much like it was just a conversation around the table, as if we were able to get together in person and do something like this. We are asking folks just to sort of keep your answers succinct. Gina does have a time sheet so that if things start to go more than a couple minutes, you may see her hold that up, and we would appreciate your help in just keeping it succinct. So I'll get started in no particular order. I guess I'll just go alphabetically, since that's the way they came to me. I'd like to begin by just telling us a little bit about yourself and who you are, where you're from, and we'll start there. And we'll begin with Corey.
Good evening. I'm Corey Alexander. I want to thank Gina and Jay for putting this together. I'm a lifelong resident of town of Belgrade, born and raised here. Lived in Oakland for a while, then moved back just recently. Been running a boarding kennel in North Belgrade for the last year and a half until circumstances of everything else in the state has closed it down. I figured it was time to step up and start being a little more community oriented and getting involved in the things of the town.
Thanks, Corey. Barbara?
Thank you, everybody, for attending, and those of you who organized, thank you. I've been a resident of Belgrade for 34 years and have been involved in a number of organizations and projects in town. But before that, I grew up in Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, went to school in New York and lived in New Jersey for a few years, lived in Boston. As I said, I've been in Belgrade for 34 years. And I worked for a number of years in fundraising for arts and educational institutions, including working at the Waterville Opera House for about 20 years, particularly on the big capital campaign that renovated the theater there. I also taught and managed an early childhood music and movement program for 20 years in Waterville and Augusta, and that made me have great contacts with a lot of young families in the area, and I really enjoyed that. I'm looking forward to working more in the town of Belgrade and look forward to perhaps serving on the Select Board. I've been on the library board for a number of years, and I'm chair of the library board right now.
Thanks, Barbara. Ernie.
Yes, good evening. Thanks for putting this on, everybody. I'm Ernie Merkins. I live in Belgrade Lakes Village. I've lived in Belgrade for 35 years, I guess. I grew up in Summer Haven, which is right next to Belgrade. I've spent 35 years in transportation and forestry and construction and property management. And I'm currently a student working on my master's degree. I have a scholarship to finish my master's degree. And I've been on the select board for 4 years. I finished one term for a former select board member who had to leave early, and then I just finished my first full term and enjoyed it. The years that I was driving transportation, I was away from Belgrade so much that I really couldn't give back to the town, and so in the 4 or 5 years that I've been away from that, and I've been here in Belgrade, I've been able to give back to the town, and I've enjoyed doing that. Look forward to doing it some more.
Great. So, this time I'll go in reverse order. But Ernie, for you, running for re-election, and you others sort of touched upon this, but why are you interested in running now? So, Ernie, why for re-election now? And for the others, why now feels like the right time to you? And could you say just a bit more about the involvement you've had with other town committees or projects, and any particular interest that you have in town activities? And we'll have time to get into some other more specific parts of that, but just sort of as continuing as part of the introduction phase.
Well, I've been prior to being on the select board, I was on the appeals board, library board. I'm still on the transfer station recycling committee. I was on a building committee years ago prior to the current town office, and the budget committee. I was also on that for a while. So I have that background. I've enjoyed being on the select board, and in the 4 years I've been there, I've had the privilege to serve with several different people who have come and gone on the board, and enjoyed it, and learned a lot from about what goes on in the town. From one of my greatest accomplishments I had a hand in bringing Anthony here but we've also had to find a new town treasurer a time or two, a new town maintenance director a time or two, and I'm really proud to have been part of kind of securing the staffing that we have here in town. That's really exemplary in my mind. Let's see, did I hit every topic you were talking about?
No, it's just again, it's just to sort of help us know a little bit more, because I mean, I know many of you, but a lot of the people who are joining us may be doing so for the first time. So let me go to Barbara now. Same question.
Okay. Since I've lived in Belgrade, I've been involved in lakes issues. I did 2 different terms in 2 different decades as president of the McGraw Pond Salmon Lake Association, working on water quality issues and building a sense of community around both of those lakes. When my kids were in school at the Belgrade Central School, I worked as co-chair of the Arts Enrichment Committee with Gina, and also with Sue Galler, and we put together arts programs through the Stevens Fund for each of the different grades every year. And then I more recently worked on the Friends of Belgrade Lakes Village, doing the fundraising for the sidewalks, the lamp posts, the bike racks, and the benches all in the village. And since 2017, I've been on the library board. In the last 2 years, I've been chair of the library board.
Thank you. And Corey?
Can you just go over the question again for
Yeah,
me, please?
just help us understand a bit about the other involvement that you've had with the town, any committees or projects you've worked on, or special interests that you may have, that different things that take place in the town.
Well, I am totally new to this political world that you guys live in. Never been involved in any of it. I've recently started being a little bit more involved in the pantry in Belgrade. My school bus, before I gave that up this year, raised 187 items for the food pantry for Thanksgiving. I've never been involved in anything in the town. I read my politics on the news all the time. I watch the politics on the news all the time. I feel that the people of the town need to be more involved in the aspect of how we run the town. I don't feel that there should be one end of the town or the other end of the town that has more involvement or more say, and I'd like to be part of that say, to give everybody a voice as to what's going on in this town. But as far as what I've done for committees, nothing really of any significance. That's about it. I'm here to serve the people of town of Belgrade and give them a voice to what's going on.
Thanks, Corey. I do want to, before I continue with the questions, just direct folks' attention to a comment that Anthony just made in the chat function, which is, for those of you who are joining us on Zoom, please post your questions in the chat feature. If you're joining us on Facebook, you can post your questions there, because the goal is really to have you be a part of this process as well. So Corey, continuing on that theme, you know, among the questions that Gina sent out earlier for folks just to think about is, as a select board member, are there any changes or improvements that you'd like to see in the town of Belgrade? And what role could the select board have in making those changes?
I'd like to see more people drawn to this town, tourism wise, or even development wise, to give the taxpayers of this town more of a break on their taxes. We have what, a top 10 golf course in the state of Maine. What are we doing to attract people for that? What do we have for accommodations for people to come to this town to utilize that golf course, other than to drive up from South Portland one day and drive back home that night? We have one of the biggest pike fishing fisheries in the state of Maine. What are we doing to draw people to this town for that? What do we have for accommodations for it? If we have no accommodations, then it's going to be a day trip and it's going to be gone. What are we looking at for the future of this town? Are we looking at to live off the back of the taxpayers, or are we going to draw people in here and use the resources that we abundantly have to pay some of the bills of this town?
And what are the things that you think the select board could do toward that?
I really don't know exactly. What are we doing for advertising? Are we advertising out of state for people to come up here? Are we promoting through different avenues that we can get people to come here? And even if they have to stay in Augusta, they come here and spend their money in the town of Belgrade, fishing for the day, snowmobiling for the day. We need to expand on what we have, and I don't see it happening. I see taxes and spending, and what are we doing to attract the people to offset that taxes? And I think the select boards should be involved in trying to figure that out.
Okay. Barbara? Same question about, you know, any changes or improvements that you'd like to see take place in the town, and what role could the select board have in making those changes?
I think that our greatest asset in town is our natural resources, water and water quality, the beauty of our lakes, and the ability of the lakes to attract people, residents, and, as Corey was saying, visitors. And I think that we need to ensure that the lakes remain clean. We have a newly established water quality committee in town, and they will be gathering information and issues to bring before the town in order to make sure that we have good water quality, so people will want to continue to come here to visit, to live, and vacation. I think we need to look at, in addition to bringing people in for vacation, is how can we attract younger families to come here? We've become a bit of a senior center, which is great. I mean, I'm among that. I didn't come here as a senior. I became a senior here. But I think that, you know, again, we have an active senior resources committee that's looking at services to keep seniors, enable seniors to stay in their homes, and perhaps as a long-term goal, build some sort of an assisted living facility in town. That's something that we can certainly look into. But as far as attracting younger families, we need to have younger families for the town to thrive. And so it's important that we maintain our good schools, that we have strong recreation and library programs in order to attract people who will want to come and raise their families here.
How do we do that? Just given the relatively, if you're looking at realtor.com and seeing the properties that are available right now, there aren't very many properties that are available, and they don't look like entry-level properties, the ones that I see listed. So how do we get young people to consider Belgrade?
Well, that's a good question. I don't have
Thank you.
the answer, but I think it's something that, that we definitely need to look into,
Yeah.
because in order for the town to continue to thrive, we do need to have a broad range of citizens, not be so skewed to the senior population.
Yeah, I smiled when you said that, Barbara, because I too I came here with a young family, actually without a family, then had kids, and now I'm excited that I'm finally old enough to get the COVID vaccine. So it's like we're all progressing together in that direction. Ernie, as a member of the board now for a few years, what changes do you think the board could play in the future of the town with regard to the development in other areas?
Well, I'm also a member of the Belgrade Lakes Region Business Group, and we've had some meetings in that group to potentially entertain aiding and funding perhaps a part-time person similar to what Waterville Creates has hired to sort of drive the rebuilding of Waterville's downtown. That a part-time person, maybe the town might kick in a few dollars towards that in addition to maybe a group like the Seven Lakes Alliance or any other group in town that might be able to kick in some. To advertise, to bang the drum, as you might say, to bring more tourism or business or what have you to this town, it takes some time, and it takes and it's not time that every board member has, most of which are still working, not retired, and there's really quite a lot that Anthony's charged with to do as a town manager. That isn't, it's not really solely his responsibility to be the economic development director for the town, but we may have to put some small funding towards that if we can, to sort of drive that. If you can imagine, take a business like Heyman Lumber or Gagne and Son, who their main offices are here in Belgrade, and we're blessed to have them. And they have many at this point in their career, in their longevity, they have many operations all around the state. If they wanted to, let's say their main operations were in Auburn or in another part of the state, and they wanted to expand to Belgrade, how could we attract that? And I think there's ways that we can maybe position ourselves to do that when there's businesses that might want to expand to an area like this, that maybe started out small in a confined part of Augusta, for instance, or Waterville, that wanted to move out here where there was more space. I see my time is up.
No, well, thank you for that. It's interesting because everybody's commented on wanting to keep taxes low, because as the property values go up, it affects everybody. We've all seen that, and we're fortunate that we have a town manager, a very talented town manager, to carry out the day-to-day functions. But a lot of the sort of the high-level vision of what the town ought to be doing comes from the select people. They're the ones that sort of help give the guidance, and then the town manager and the staff at the town office do things on a day-to-day basis. So, I'd be interested, and I'll loop back around to Corey. just what ideas do you have for generating revenue to offset taxes? You mentioned a couple of them with perhaps accommodations and other things to take advantage of the fact we've got Great Lakes and snowmobiling and those type of things. But how do you think we could turn those resources into dollars to help offset the burden upon the taxpayers?
One of the biggest things that I've seen, this town needs to support small businesses more abundantly than they do now.
How so? Could you say more about that? Like what would the town do? What could the
I'm
town
not
do?
really sure how you would go about that. Like, I've never done this town thing. I can't
Yeah.
tell you how we're gonna do that, but it's an idea that the small businesses in this town need the support of this town. They are the backbone of this country. And you can debate that all you want, but if you don't have small businesses and all you're doing is running to the box stores down in Augusta or Waterville or up in Skowhegan, you're not doing your town any good whatsoever. You need to support small businesses. You need to have policies in place in this town to support new small businesses. I've seen a couple on Main Street and down in the lakes that have started up. And let's hope that they continue to thrive. There's 3 new businesses down there: the bookstore, the little salon, and the one next to that. They're doing well, and I hope that they continue to do well. And I don't know what would work to support them, but we should do everything we can to support them, because that's the backbone of this community, and we need to continue to grow that. And if the town has any property, I don't know if the town has property that is rental property or stuff like that, but those need to be exploited, and make sure we're covering bills for rental property if we own rental property, not paying instead of collecting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we would all agree that small businesses are where it's at. I mean,
Absolutely.
and it's not just in Belgrade, as you said, it's certainly absolutely true in Maine. I can't pull the figures off the top of my head, but the importance of small businesses is everything. I'm not a small business owner, so I guess I'd look to say, you know, what are some examples of the types of things that a town select board could do? I mean, we could say we want to have a welcoming community and that type of things, but what can a select board do to help support somebody that wants to start or run a small business?
The downtown is very good about festivals and food markets and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That attracts people to these areas where there's a concentration of small businesses. Something like that. Festivals. We used to, down at Belgrade Central, used to have fireworks, and it was an all-day thing with people coming in there. Jay, you know it. You've been there.
I have fond memories of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm. Mhm.
Stuff like that.
Mhm.
The fireworks, that is a great attractor. Maybe it needs to be expanded so it's not just, you know, maybe it's a weekend thing where there's a weekend celebration of the for America instead of just a 4th of July celebration. Just attract people. We used to come from miles. When Waterville had theirs, you know, we used to go there all the time. We need to attract those people.
Great. Oh, great. Thank you. Barbara, your thoughts?
I have some experiences with private fundraising to offset one-time or special expenses, such as the library recently received a $10,000 grant from the Stephen and Tabitha King Foundation for new shelving and also for books to help fill some of those shelves for the Belgrade Library. And the amenities in the village, in conjunction with the rebuilding of Route 27, those were all made possible through private fundraising. the Village Green, which is a great place for, I don't know if there have been any festivals there yet because of COVID, but there certainly have been craft fairs and book groups. There have been various groups that have been meeting, and that whole park was made possible by a generous area couple. So I think that there are undoubtedly other ways that we can look to private or governmental funding sources, not for basic ongoing expenses, but for some of these special projects. As Ernie was talking about, maybe hiring an economic development person, there would probably be a grant available. We could research it through KV Cog. They're a great source of expertise.
Ernie, your thoughts? Other areas where the town might consider looking to, I think I actually started with you, didn't I? Generating revenues to offset taxes, because you're the one that mentioned the developer potential.
Well, obviously, if we could attract a larger business here, that actually had a staff of people that they hired, that would certainly bring money into the town and help the tax base. If we could maybe attract a Granite Hill style assisted living facility that might build in this community, that would help to aid some of our seniors to stay here longer in their, either in their own homes or after they couldn't be in their own homes. And it's certainly a lovely place to be. We do certain things to encourage families to come by supporting an active recreation program and library. When we talk about expanding fireworks and so on and so forth, I know that's expensive, and so it's not something specifically that the select board is fond of just throwing money at. The money that we spend on our share of the fireworks is voted on by the town. So if the town, wants to spend more money on that, or wants to put some money into economic development in some fashion, we could certainly, they could vote to do that, and be great. We try to support with anything the town needs to buy. I know we try to always support local businesses in buying what the town needs. And there's certain business people in town that are contractors that are building homes that are affordable for younger families. I know I sold my former home recently to one of those contractors who did some minor work to it and sold it to a young couple who's going to stay in this town. So I was encouraged to see that, because I was once, like you, Jay, one of those young couples who was here with small children in this town. And so we can try to do that. The select board could, I always try to encourage the select board to think outside of the box, to sort of steer away from that's the way we've always done it, and maybe it'll go away as something we need to pay attention to in new ways of thinking.
I got to ask different questions because we keep going back to the old people discussions, and I know that I've got more gray in my beard. You've got more hair up top than I do, but spot on. So I think that one of the constant challenges that we have is how to strike the balance. It's lovely to have a lot of good ideas, and you all have a lot of good ideas, but how do we strike the balance between what we want, what we need, what we can afford, and what we absolutely can't do without? Now, let me start this one with Barbara. How do you go about that process as you think about these things and sort of collect information and make decisions? Because the wants certainly exceed the resources, and so what's your style in approaching that?
I would say my style is to work collaboratively. I think that we have a lot of very committed and smart people in town who are serving on our town committees. We have a budget committee, we have planning board, we have a lot of resources right within our own town committees, who I'm sure have lots of ideas on how to achieve that balance. They go through it every year. They have to put together they have to put together the town budget every year. I think that in my view, and especially after a year of isolation from COVID, I think that we're probably all realizing how important our interpersonal relationships and a shared sense of community are. And, I agree that roads, that the transfer station, that, what fire and rescue, that these are certainly very important, and I don't want to diminish them at all. But I think that if we don't continue to support the recreational programs that are really used a lot by families and our seniors, and the library, and these other activities, I think that we're going to lose that sense of shared community, and we can have the best roads in the state of Maine, and people will just drive right on by if there's nothing to keep them here. So I realize it's a balancing act, but I think that the committees in town have to weigh that, and I don't think it's a fixed ratio. I don't think that you can say, yes, the recreation department should get X amount of money and X percentage, and the library Y, and the roads A, B, and C. I just think it has to be negotiated every year, and we have to keep reordering our priorities based on available funds.
Corey, to you, the topic is just about balancing the needs and the wants and the resources, and how we can pull things together that make a meaningful impact on the town.
Well, the knee-jerk reaction is to.
Oh, I was supposed to be
Were you
Corey.
asking me or
Corey.
Corey, go ahead.
Corey. Yeah, sorry. I'll come back to you, Ernie. I won't forget.
Okay, fine. I thought you said me.
He's on a roll if he wants to
He
continue.
was.
I definitely think the town needs to look at the big picture. Essential services, are, in my opinion, priority number one. We can't let our roads deteriorate to the point where the water has seeped underneath the hot top and is destroying the base underneath, because that 5 years down the road is even 3 times more the bill. Our transfer station, it takes care of everything that everybody creates. You know it, I know it. We need to take care of it. I'm all for recreational, the library, anything that the town is voting on. And if they are voting to spend the money, then I'm okay with it. But I think, like I said, the priorities need to be essential services. We need to keep everything up to date. Our buildings can't be left to go 5 or 6 years without making sure that the roof isn't leaking, because 5 or 6 years after that, we're replacing all kinds of stuff. We need to keep after the stuff that is essential. Keep our town in good shape so that when people do come here, they're not busting their car down the road or anything along that lines. But I'm all for everything that the town is looking to do, as long as the town is looking to pay for it some way without absolutely putting more and more taxes on the town that aren't necessary.
Yeah, I think the challenge is how to do it, because
exactly
we've got so many roads.
Oh.
This is a great time of year to go for a drive, because
absolutely.
over the next month or so, several roads will become barely passable. We really don't have to worry about speed limit enforcement.
Worse.
They are. So that's
over the
thing
years, they're only going to get worse.
And so that to the point of, we could spend the whole town budget on just roads, and that's all we would have is just roads.
Exactly.
But it's
that's
really
not
kind
realistic.
of, that's right. So that's what I'm trying to get at is, how do you strike that balance of, we can afford to do some of this and some of this, but it just sort of, how do you go about making that decision in your mind about, this year we're going to do this and next year we're going to do that, and 2 years down the road we'll do something else?
Every place I've ever worked for, at the sheriff's office, I worked at the sheriff's office for 17 years. There's always a capital improvement fund. Central Maine Motors, Capital Improvement Fund. You need to keep giving it a little bit so that you can keep up with the things that need to be kept up with. You can't just expect to go in and spend $300,000 on the Point Road or something like that and left everything out alone. Even if you have to do it in little sections. I saw Rome there last year when I was doing my bus. They did a whole section in the middle because that was the worst section, but they did it right. They didn't just, they ground it, they smoothed it, they resurfaced it, they ditched it. They didn't just throw a coat of hot top over it. It's a balance of capital improvements. You do a little bit here and you a little bit there, and you also take care of everything else that the town wants taken care of. It's a big balancing act, but I think it's an important balancing act.
Ernie?
Well, the knee-jerk reaction is to throw money at everything, but you know, when you join this board, you realize, if you didn't know, the select board largely has control over about 17% of the budget, and out of that we pay for snow plowing, roads, transfer station, what have you, and the largest part of our budget is the school education costs and our commitment to the county. And when I first started running for this board, I thought, well, I'll just go up to the school board and slam my shoe on the table and tell them, they need to cut Belgrade's share of the education budget, and that would lower our taxes, and we'd have more money to spend in town and keep taxes low. But it doesn't work that way, because there's other towns that need to would need to approve of that, and they don't want to pay any more. They're quite happy if Belgrade pays the share it pays. And so the best you can do is to hope in that part of the budget to have a great superintendent, a good rapport with him, and hold his feet to the fire when they propose budgets for school that doesn't raise taxes in town. But there's always, I'm really proud of the roads that we have in this town. I worked for Morris Childs for a summer many years ago, and his dedication to as the road commissioner was really exemplary for many years. And we're sorry he's not road commissioner now, but we have a great road commissioner in his place. And we've really been wise with how we've spent money for various roads and the ditching and the water issues. I think we're pretty well on top of. It is expensive, but fire, we're setting aside funds for a new fire station, and always we set aside funds to improve the equipment for fire, and that's ever more expensive than it was 20 years ago. And so we just have to do the best we can with what we have.
And important to point out for the audience that not every road in town is a town road. One of my favorite roads this time of year is 135, because for me to go from my house to the town office, I leave part of my suspension as I go past the baker's house this time of year. So it is tough. But one of the questions that came in from an audience member, and I want to again encourage audience members to please use the chat feature or the Facebook questions, is talking about aging in place. We've acknowledged that it's important to bring young people here, and we've also acknowledged that our community is getting older. We're a little bit off the beaten path, but what are the types of things that the town could be doing to help seniors age in place? And I'll let me spin that one back around to Barbara. For no reason, Barbara, other than you're next on my screen. That's it. So.
I think that there are a number of things that we are already doing that we can build on. There's a wonderful organization in the area called Neighbors Driving Neighbors, and they are just getting back into the business again of taking people for appointments, whether it's medical appointments, hair appointments, grocery shopping, whatever. During the pandemic, they were forced to just suspend for a while, but then also just do do shopping and deliver to people. So there are, and in conjunction with Neighbors Driving Neighbors, the library has started up a book delivery service so that people can call the library and say, I would like to have a particular book, or you can get them from Interlibrary Loan, plenty of books, and they will be delivered right to the door by Neighbors Driving Neighbors. And I think that as the pandemic eases, that people will feel more comfortable taking advantage of some of those services. What else? Seniors. I know that there, again, before everything had to close down, there were a number of classes, yoga, and other opportunities at the Center for All Seasons. Even now, there is still the Tuesday morning coffee hour at the Center for All Seasons for seniors. And I think that Lily and her, the people at the center would be happy to build on those programs to draw seniors in. And then this whole question that Denny Kesha was very much interested in was bringing some sort of a senior facility to Belgrade. So that's definitely that. I mean, that's not helping people stay in place, but it's giving them a transition to the next stage. It's giving them an opportunity to stay in their neighborhood, in their town.
Mm-hmm. Corey, you don't have nearly enough gray, but I'll ask you the same question.
It's getting there, though. Getting there. The question was, what do we do about
just sort of your thoughts about recognizing that Belgrade is an aging community. We're 10 or 15 miles from a hospital, at least that far from a major grocery store, and as you think about the things that a community needs to support its senior citizens, gosh, that term just doesn't even sound right to me, but we older members, what are the things that the town can do to help people as they age in their homes? And quite frankly, some of those homes are getting older too. Actually, they're all getting older, but
yes, getting old as a whole.
Yeah. So I guess really is as we think about the things that a town can do to support the town, and one of them is this aging population, many of whom have been here for a long time, some of whom make the great decision to move here as a retirement home. But what are the things that we can do as a town to help make that more comfortable and safe?
Well, I hate to beat it to death, but taxes. The taxes of this town are out of control. The waterfront property that pays, case in point, my mother, she owned 4 acres of land on Salmon Lake. The taxes on that have gone up tremendously. And that's only 4 acres with no house down there. You can't expect a senior to age in place by taxing them out of their house. And you know it, and I know it, that is happening to so many people that they are forced to sell their houses because they can't afford the taxes in this town. I know you can tell me it's a balancing act, all you want, but it's still a legit problem of this town.
Yeah, so what do we do? Well, I guess my question really is, what do we do about it? I mean,
I don't know what we do about it, but
people would kill for 4 acres of waterfront property.
Absolutely,
in Belgrade. And on one hand, we want people to come here. We want, you talked about, bringing in folks who enjoy the lakes and those type of things. But how do we strike that? I mean, it is about balance, and the fact that the property values go up because we want people to come. As people come, property values go up. As property values go up, taxes go up, and and that drives more people out of town. It does. So I guess, what do we do about it? This gets back to the question of what can the town do to raise revenues other than taxes?
That goes back to our original question as to bringing people in this town. That's the big question. I don't really know the answer to it. I'm looking to get on this board to try to come up with answers for this. I am not got the answers, but I know the taxes are the big thing. I know we have a lot of services in this town. The services that are needed, the fire. We have to pay for 911 services. We have to pay for deputy services. It's all a big cost, but the seniors are taking a really big blunt of it.
Yes, at some point we have to say no, right?
Absolutely.
We
At some
can't do
point,
it.
we have to say
As you said, I think the example that you gave of roads is a good one. You know, we'd like to pave every road. We can't pave every road because we can't
absolutely,
spend, we can't
it's
spend
not
$1 million.
even realistic.
So-
And if it was, and if you think that it's realistic that I'm even implying that we pave every road and,
No.
and just raise taxes, that's
Absolutely
not how
not.
it's going to happen. It's not
No,
can't happen.
I'm absolutely supporting your position. I'm just trying to understand how do we do that? What are the things that we say no to so that we can say yes to other things?
That's going to be a tough decision. I'm not sure of that. I am not sure of that.
Okay.
Do we have 10 town employees and we need 6? Do we have a new fire truck every 4 years, or can we do a new fire truck every 5 years? The big picture has got to be looked at. And I know you guys are working on it, and I'm not complaining about the board. I'm not complaining about any individual, but we're having a little round table here of solutions to solve these problems. And I'm going to say it point blank. The problem with aging in place for this community is taxes, plain and simple, taxes.
Ernie, your thoughts about aging in place and supporting seniors as they do so?
Yeah, I think the problem isn't taxes. I think the problem is options. You know, because it's not really up to the board if anybody with lakefront property, you know, can't afford the taxes on their lakefront property, because lakefront property is going to be taxed at a higher rate than a property that's less valuable, and that's in every town. And you know, we do the very best we can with the to keep our equipment up to date and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there are the greatest resource we have in this town are the volunteers that serve on all the committees and boards. Case in point is the committee that Regina spearheaded, the communications committee, which didn't exist not long ago, but it was sort of you know, her focus to, you know, create a committee that could communicate better to the town many different things, and among them, for elderly people, what's available to them. Are there grants, programs? In worst case scenarios, there's tax abatement that can take place. But you know, if you've lived 30 years on a lakefront property in town and you're having trouble, you know, in your later years, my folks are in this boat, you know, paying for your taxes, you know, you might have considered, you know, downsizing that property and, you know, to a property less valuable that you can afford. It's not really up to the select board or the town to cut your taxes on a valuable piece of property that you know, that helps pay the fund the tax base of this town. I mean, there's many different programs and you know, to help with heat, to help with utilities. There are abatements that can happen if in dire circumstances. But you know, the best we can do is to keep our taxes as flat as possible, which, you know, amazingly we've been able to do in the last year or so during this COVID situation. I always get the time sign.
Why is that, Ernie?
Why is it me? That's
I
all
don't
right.
know.
I mean,
I don't know.
as long as you have time for me, that's all.
We can analyze that another time. But you know, it is I mean, this is a huge issue, and I know from my years of hanging around the State House, you know, you look at the folks that live in the fishing communities on the islands that you know, and we've seen this in Belgrade. If you look at the tax maps over the years, you would see some surprising, striking, and very sobering ways that real estate has been carved up, sometimes to pay the taxes. And you know, I think it's my heart goes out to a family who's, you know, it may be a really valuable piece of property, but that's their home. And you know, it's
Exactly.
been
That's
it's
their
been there-
home. That's where they've been born and raised.
for generations.
Exactly.
It is, you know, but the other reality is, you know, it gets back to we can't do everything, and there are tough decisions that have to be made. So, and I realize that, you know, that's not the sole responsibility of the board. I mean, I ask these questions because, you know, in a normal year we would have a town meeting, we'd all get together, and I hope that we're able to get back to that. I'll talk a little bit more about the voting in just a second, but you know, it's at the town meeting that the town's legislative body, which are the voters, they get together, they have the discussions, and they say, this is what we're going to do this year, this is what we're not going to do this year. But in carrying that out, the townspeople look to the Board of Selectmen. You're sort of the higher level thinkers, because you know, the board has a depth of understanding that the rest of us don't have, because you see the warrant articles, you see every penny that the town is spending. So we turn to the board to say, what are your ideas based upon your larger understanding of the things that we could do to sort of help strike that balance. You know, I guess I don't see any other questions, Anthony. I assume that if we did have, you'd pop them to me. Anything from Facebook?
We have lots of interesting comments from Facebook, but not terribly many questions.
Okay. Well,
So please check the Facebook page, because you'll find some interesting input from your fellow citizens.
okay. Well, I can only do so many things. I'm an old person. I can only have, I've got 2 monitors going here with several different screen views, and so I can't keep up with everything. But in our closing,
Jay, you are the youngest 83-year-old I know.
You know, it's funny. I was saying earlier that no matter how old I get, I'm never old enough, and my wife would support that, I'm sure. But you know, I was never really old enough for the senior discounts. I was never old enough for the vaccine until just today. So it's part of my lifelong challenge. But you know, I guess my last sort of question for the group would be, you know, as you think about where you'd like to see the town and down the road, and let's say it's 5 or 10 years, what are the types of things that could happen now and for the next year or two that will pay us dividends 5 and 10 years down the road? So I'm looking for you to plant the seeds that may help somebody else, but what would those look like? And let's see, I started that one with Barbara. Corey, I'll start with you this time, because I started with Barbara last time.
Planting a seed to create things 5 or 10 years down the
Yeah,
road.
something that you could do now. You know, I mean, if I'll give you an example. You know, if you were in the maple syrup business, you'd plant a tree that would be hardy, and you know, you'd plant a variety that you know, 10 or 15 years from now would produce that. But in terms of the town, and in terms of when you think of a successful Belgrade, based upon the things that we've talked about here, where we've got young people coming into town, we've got people coming because it's a great place to be and to stay, and we have older citizens who are here because they choose to be here in many cases. But what are the types of things that the town could do now that you know, that will help assure that we're successful 5 or 10 years down the road, when I am legitimately old, not just now?
Well, I think I said earlier, tourism would be wonderful. And I know it's already happening, but maybe we can expand it to, I think like Ernie said, advertising for out of state, for people to come to Belgrade to enjoy our resources. We have a beautiful area. You have people that go all over the country to see beautiful country, and we live in it. We're exceptionally privileged to live in this area. Creating more small businesses. I don't know how to do it. I don't know. Remember where the canoe and kayak place is? There used to be a laundromat there many, many years ago. It wouldn't be a bad idea to have a laundromat back in this town again. People travel to Oakland or Waterville or Winslow, and that would be successful. I know it would be. There's many camps that are here all summer long that have to drive to town to do their laundry. Maybe a small one, you know, something along that line. Something to create just a small business. to expand our tax base. Get a little bit of the taxes off the citizens so that they can keep their property and help the town all at the same time. And maybe get with the legislature. I have no idea what they have for resources, but maybe we could get with them to help with the taxes for the seniors or development grants or something like that. I don't know what's there, but there's money for everything else in this world. Maybe we can get some money for that.
Thanks. Barbara?
I think that we need to keep in mind that 65% of our tax base comes from lakefront properties, and that our water quality now and 5, 10, 15, 25 years in the future is vitally important to any businesses that are ongoing now or established in the future. We might be able to look at some non-invasive eco recreational businesses. But we definitely need to collaborate with all of the neighboring towns. We need to make sure, because Belgrade we share the watershed with 13 other, I believe it's a total of 13 towns. We need to be able to cooperate, communicate with the other towns in the watershed to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of protecting this most vital resource.
Thank you. And Ernie?
Well, let's see. Case in point of how that has happened is, the downtown revitalization in the village here started out as a brainchild of a few people and blossomed into what it became through the reconstruction of the sidewalks and then the bricking and the lighting and so on and so forth. And that was largely a separate fundraising privately apart from the town. I'd like to see the town work more closely with volunteers like that who have these ideas. The Center for All Seasons was once a brainchild of a small group of people. Became, it got funded through fundraising and so on and so forth. And that'd be great. Potentially this having a person to sort of be the liaison to hunt down grants. We've had some success with some of the employees of the town. Travis Burden just got a grant that he spearheaded to help fund some equipment for the rescue truck, and there's many more of those but they take time to apply for and hunt down, and I think if we had somebody that was involved in that. One thing prior to COVID that I spearheaded is I had a conversation with Carl Gartley, our superintendent. One of the things that I wanted to sort of start a program with him where we would go into the schools at younger ages or certainly in high schools and attempt to orient kids to how wherever they wind up living after they leave high school or college, their towns and cities need them. Belgrade is one of those. We have a volunteer fire department and the average age is, right around 50 or plus. And, at some point we have 2 paid EMTs on staff now. And at some point we may have to pay, to staff our fire department because we won't have enough volunteers. And as I stated, there's over 90 people in town that are on all these different committees, and God bless them for helping out like they do. And we need to encourage that more because it's going to be, that's what's going to help drive the town to support seniors, communicate better, create a better recreation program. And here's my sign. There's my sign.
You're a good sport. Thank you. Well, before I turn it over to Gina for wrap up, I want to thank the 3 of you for running. I think that putting your foot forward to being willing to serve the town is a very positive thing, and it's nice to see that there's a competitive interest in that there's more people running than we have available seats. Just a reminder to folks, Gina, were you going to talk about the balloting, the voting?
I can do that, yeah.
Okay. Then I'll stop talking before I get the sign. And
Thank you, Jay.
And thank you all. So back to you, Gina.
Okay,
Thank
well, thanks really so much to the three of you for participating in the forum. It really has given us a good chance to get to know you better. And I really want to say how much we appreciate your service to the town by running for the office of Select Board. This public service takes a lot of time and energy, and we want you to know that your commitment to the town is valued. This energy and enthusiasm you bring to the town helps make Belgrade a good place to live. Thank you, Jay, for moderating, and Anthony for helping us set up the forum. Anthony will be posting the forum on the town's website, Facebook page, and YouTube channel. Please don't forget to vote. Absentee ballots are available now. You can get one either by visiting the town office or by calling them. And there's a secure drop box outside the town office where you can drop off your ballots, or you can also mail it back. It's 75 cents to mail it back. There will be an election also live at the Center for All Seasons, Saturday, March 20th. At the Center for All Seasons, polls will be open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. You can register to vote that day. And you can also register to vote before that at the town office. And the newsletter is coming out next week. I hope you get a chance to read it. And that's all I have. Thanks again and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
All the best.